Are you looking for a way to help your brick-and-mortar business drive more traffic and increase your sales? Look no further than the Receipt Paper Podcast. In this podcast, Joanne and Kyle provide their sage advice on how to make your brick-and-mortar store the hottest spot in town. Whether you're just launching a new business or trying to grow an existing one, these informative episodes will leave you inspired. In each episode, Joanne and Kyle take on a different topic related to running a successful business. They offer practical tips based on their own experience as owners of multiple brick-and-mortar locations. So whatever challenges you're facing, they have actionable advice for you. From finding a location and executing your build-out, to merchandising and customer experience, to sales and marketing, Joanne and Kyle have you covered. With helpful advice from these experienced entrepreneurs, you are sure to learn how to increase your sales and have your business running out of receipt paper in no time. Let's dive right in.
Well, hey there, Michelle. Thanks for joining us today on the Receipt Paper Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I think I was just telling you before I hit record here that I am excited for today's episode because so many of our students, I know, are thinking about their business and how to brand that side of things, but personal branding is not something we've always talked about on this podcast, or, I think new business owners are even thinking about. So I think this is going to be a fabulous topic for today.
Yes, I'm excited.
Awesome. So Michelle, before we dive in today, I would love if you just shared a little bit about who you are and your experience and background with our audience.
Yeah, amazing. So I'm Michelle McCarthy. I have close to 15 years experience in brand and brand strategy. I used to work in corporate branding, so I can empathize a lot with your audience in terms of getting that branding, tweaking it and honing it and just getting it just right prior to launch. So I worked in corporate, worked with everyone from big tech giants to solopreneurs and mom and pop shops. And during the pandemic, I had a brilliant light bulb idea that I was going to set up my own business. And because I worked in branding, I was like, how hard can it be? I'll just, set it, forget it, and be a millionaire by Friday. Easy peasy. And
Right.
what I found out was it's not that simple. And despite having years and years of brand strategy and marketing experience, building my own personal brand is a complete different kettle of fish.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that if I was struggling with it, someone who has all this experience, then there has to be people out there who have no experience in this that are just completely overwhelmed. So from there, I pivoted my business from doing corporate branding to personal branding. And that's what I do now.
Awesome. I love that you have that experience on both sides and you've been in the trenches and done it yourself. So that's incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I know many of those listening may not even know this term, personal branding versus corporate branding. So why don't you share at a high level, what's the difference between the two? How would you explain that?
So how I would explain it is corporate branding is a lot about going out, seeing where there's a need in the market and catering to that need, and catering and tailoring yourself to suit your audience and your customer base. It's very much customer first.
Yeah.
Personal branding is, as the name would suggest, it's personal. It's about you, the person. So it's less about figuring out what everybody else wants and molding yourself to be that, and instead figuring out who you are, what you have to offer, amplifying those best parts of yourself, and then presenting that to the world. Everybody, whether they like it or not, has got a personal brand. It doesn't matter if you are in business or not. We're a walking, talking brand. Everybody is. And working with your personal brand is just developing the best parts of yourself that you want to present out there. Whether that's if you're in business, if you work in another business and you want to get promotions, or maybe you want to get a book deal or get on podcasts or get a speaking gig, All these stem from having a strong personal brand.
Ooh, yeah. I love that. I love that so much. I know for so many that are out there opening physical storefronts, I mean, in the beginning, especially, so much of, your success is really, you out there as this one individual, marketing your business, and you really become, a brand yourself. And you really are having to have this personal brand and corporate brand at the same time. And I know for us in the beginning, like 5 years ago, I think back, like people came in to see us, now we have
Hmm.
employees and we don't have to be there. But at the beginning, it was ourselves. And so that's huge. And I love this topic. It's such a good one.
Yeah, definitely. And what I think as well is there's a lot of buzz around personal branding at the moment in terms of the online space. And I think a lot of people get confused. They think a personal brand means X amount of followers online, which it doesn't. And nor does it mean that you have a successful brand if you have certain thousand followers or whatever. But I think, and nobody seems to be talking about this, is that a personal brand is equally, if not more important when you have a brick and mortar store. Because, like you
Yeah.
just said, people come in to see you, they're going to go, oh, Mary down the road, she's fantastic. You need to go
Yes.
see her. She's an expert at whatever it is, insert whatever your business is here. But equally, we all know someone, from whatever town that you grew up where we don't go into a certain store because the manager was mean to us or is always
Mhm.
grumpy or, is really poor customer service. That is all an extension and a reflection of your brand.
Yes.
So building a personal brand, it's happening naturally, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So, you might as well work on it and build one that's going to work for you and help you and align with your business goals.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's happening whether you know it or not. And it's
It's
so
true.
true. I think some of these businesses, like you said, you start to not really want to go in, like, oh gosh, they're horrible to talk to, or the owner's always grumpy, or and they don't even
Yeah.
know that they're affecting their customers that way. So I love that. So how do you recommend brick and mortar business owners kind of, start to think about their personal branding?
Um, I think it would depend on what phase they're at. If they haven't started yet, as in if they haven't opened up their business yet, they're in a great position because they can hopefully take a pause and look at themselves.
Mm.
When you're already running the business, it's a little bit more difficult because you may have already portrayed yourself in a certain way. But
Right.
either way, it's both of them require you to take a pause, take a step back and do a bit of a deep dive. There's a lot of inner work, which a lot of people can skate over, just go, oh, that's fluffy. But there's a lot of inner work into figuring out, the elements of yourself that you like, the elements of yourself that you don't like, and how you can integrate them and how you can accept them and how you can find your inner confidence and show up authentically in a way that resonates with you. The biggest mistake is back to the corporate branding. The biggest mistake, and this is exactly what I did as well, was you take corporate brand strategies and you apply it to your personal brand. So you go, okay, well, people seem to like X, Y, and Z, and they like when I'm doing this, or they like this creator, they like this business owner. So I'm just gonna like emulate and this kind of like fake it till you make it, but you actually end up just being a copycat. And the biggest problem with that is one, it's not authentic and it'll all shine true. But when you do that on a personal level, it is so, so difficult. There's this inner clashing when you're showing up as someone that is not you, and it'll eat away at you.
Mhm.
So that's why I always say take the pause at the start. It's like some people, like I said, think it's a bit of fluffy work, but it's so, so important because all the obstacles that are standing in your way, you can break through all those limiting beliefs. You can stand proud of who you are, and then you attract people like you, or your authenticity just attracts the right kind of people anyway. And then from there, everything else becomes so much easier. Your marketing, showing up on social media, like you name it, absolutely everything becomes so, so much easier.
I love that. I know in the beginning, like for so many, it's hard to have that confidence and because you're new, you're opening a brand new business and for many that are opening a brick and mortar, it's their first time. But um I think if you take the time, like you said, and reflect on, what am I actually good at though? And how can I show up in those ways and be confident with those strengths? I think that can really help in the beginning. And then you don't feel so um what is the word I'm looking for? Like, uh, I guess inauthentic, but you're
Hmm.
able to show up authentically. That's great.
Yeah. And I mean, like, then, I mean, also, like I said, it extends to everything, but even operationally in your business, if you know that, like, you don't like certain tasks, obviously if you're launching lean and you're opening it up lean, there's a bit of grunt work where you just have to roll up your sleeves, but you know that this is sucking your soul, so one of the first hires is going to be someone who's going to take that off your plate, so that
Yes.
you can still be who you want to be. You can be the type of leader, you can be the type in the community that is attracting clients or customers. You can go out, you can network, you can do all those things where your personal brand will stand to you, but having that pause rather than just being like, I can figure it all out, will really stand to you in all aspects of your business.
Mm. Yes. Yeah. We certainly can't do it all.
We
Nobody
try,
expects.
we do try.
Yes. Oh man,
I'm
we do.
guilty of it
We
too.
do.
Yeah.
What are some recommendations you have for showing up authentically? I know, you see online a lot of people are avoidant of wanting to be vulnerable in that space, or, there's people out there that are doing it, wildly well. So, do you have any recommendations on that?
Yes. So first of all, I think authenticity. Uh, I need to find a better word because I get tongue-tied on that a lot, and considering I say it often, but that and vulnerability, I think, are a little bit misunderstood. I think a lot of
Mm.
people think that being vulnerable online means that you're going to talk about your divorce, you're going to cry, you're going to, essentially trauma dump like everything
Yeah,
that's going on in your life. And nobody wants that. And
right.
then being authentic, some people get confused as well in that they're like, does that mean I need to show up without any makeup? Does that mean I need to show people my messy kitchen, or like just how much of a hot mess I am? Do I have to show my kids? Do I have to? I'm like, no, 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 no. First of all, you create the boundaries on what you want, but showing up authentically and being vulnerable just means being real. It just means that, like, everything's not all sunshine and rainbows. And that doesn't mean that you have to talk about the negative things. You just need to stop kind of like sugarcoating it, or presenting yourself as like this person who's got everything figured out. People
Hmm.
want to see just relatable content. So like
Yeah.
that, you can still keep it positive, but I mean, like, just something that's springing to my mind is like, we'll just say one of your listeners has a cafe and they bake donuts or muffins. I don't know, I'm not a baker, but and then there's a mishap. You could take a photo if you wanted, put it on your Instagram stories, and like write a funny caption. Not like, oh my God, this Monday is Mondaying, like, can anything get any worse? Don't do that. But, be like, everybody deserves to be loved despite, how you look or whatever. And then just be like 50% off muffins today because this is what happened or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
that's being real. That's being like, hey, look, shit happens,
Yeah.
and but you're not being vulnerable. You're not like I said, you're not trauma dumping. You're not um
Mhm.
some people, women in particular, get really hung up on, like, showing up without makeup. And I'm like, you don't have to wear makeup. Or also some people are like, they don't want to unless they are wearing makeup. I'm like, you.
Right.
Like, figure out what works for you. There's a little bit of trial and error and a little bit of experimentation, but it's just, I think the days of the perfectly polished feed and everything totally refined and totally scripted are gone. People just
Yeah.
want to see just want to see relatable, normal content. And particularly when you're doing when you have a brick and mortar store,
Yeah.
it's your community. It's the local area. So you want to be like, oh, like she's really funny. He's really relatable. I feel like I know that owner. So I'm going to go
Hmm.
there rather than, their competitor down the road because I already feel like I know them. That's what
Yeah.
authenticity is. That's what being vulnerable is. It's
Hmm.
not all the negative, crying on camera that you see.
Yes. Oh, yes. I love that term drama dumping because that's exactly what I think of when I think of the word vulnerable at first, it's like, oh gosh, I don't want to share my whole like health journey with the whole world, because we own a wellness center. And
Mhm.
so
But I
I
mean, like,
love that.
there is
Yeah.
elements like that as well that, I mean, I think people look at it from their whole life. So we'll say if you have a health center and you have health issues, or had in the past, there might be an element, but you don't have to go through everything. You might just surface level be like, I get where you're coming from because you don't even have to mention whatever the health issue is. You can just mention in passing, like, had some health issues in the past. And the one thing that really, got me out of bed in the morning was XYZ. Less salesy than that. But, people are like, oh, she gets me.
Yes.
She understands where I am at. She gets it. She's not just being like this perfect Instagram model that's like, buy my green juice and you can look like me. Like, that's all
Yeah.
bull. We can all see through it. Whereas we want to see
Yeah.
real women, we want to see real people and be like, oh my God, she doesn't have it all figured out, but look how far she's come. I want
Yeah.
what she's doing. I want to hear from her.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that's being vulnerable, that's being authentic. And then things that are absolutely not related to that whatsoever, where you live and, what you do on Sundays and your location, like that's absolutely one, it's not relevant, but also there's no need. Nobody cares.
Yes, yes. Oh, yeah, all good stuff. I think that's why, video has kind of exploded because people just kind of want a glimpse of, people, what the behind the scenes is. And I always tell our store owners, like, people just want to see what your storefront looks like before they come in, or they just want to, show them a little behind the scenes of what you're doing there. But it doesn't have to be I love that reminder. It doesn't have to be super, behind the curtain, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, one of my clients is has a doggy daycare and a grooming center, and it's something that she does excellently well. Is she shows the behind the scenes of what the dogs get up to every day, and it's almost
Oh,
like school or like I mean, it is a daycare, but like it's quite
yeah.
structured. And
Oh,
they love it, and the dogs get rewards, or they do art and it goes up on this gallery wall.
oh my
And the
gosh, how
people who
fun.
use these, it's so adorable. And the people who send their dogs to this daycare, their dogs are their babies.
Yes.
So, when you walk into this space and you see the art that your baby did so proudly displayed,
Oh my gosh, yes.
but that they won't see that unless they walk in, and
Yeah.
perhaps they're actually doing some online research first. So giving
Yeah.
all these glimpses, you go,
Yeah.
well, my dog is way better than that dog. I'm sure they could get their art on the wall, and they're like, I'm going to go
Oh,
like have a viewing. Things like that. It's relatable. It's fun. You know, it's relevant to your customer and to your clients. And just thinking of those kinds of behind the scenes parts, depending on what your business is it can go so far. And like that, people feel like they know you then. And they
yeah.
also seeing a little bit of the behind the scenes um makes them trust you. So just to go back to like the cafe or the restaurant example, if you show, scenes of your chef drinking their morning coffee and be like, what's, you know, whatever, Brian, what's our special for today? And that goes up in your story. And he goes, oh, it's going to be a walnut salad, blah, 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 blah. You're like, oh, that sounds delicious. And that goes up in your story. One, we know who's cooking my food. I can have a look at him, and we are all judgy, whether we like to say we are not. I'm like, he looks well manicured, well clean. I'm
Yeah.
okay with him touching
Yes.
my food. The kitchen,
Yes.
it looks clean, it looks polished. Okay. So that like tick, tick, tick. And then he's also sold me on a walnut and goat's cheese salad that absolutely sounds delicious.
Yes.
And I'm like, you know what? I know I'm going for lunch now.
Ooh, yeah.
That's behind the scenes. That's relatable. And
Yeah.
it's also it's getting people in the door. And you're not, you know, you're not sharing the bits that nobody wants to see or that would be detrimental.
Oh, yes. Love this. That's awesome. So how do people stand out with online? I know there's just so much going on out there and there's so many businesses, there's new ones popping up every day. What can people do to really stand out?
It's it's tricky. It is getting harder and harder. Um, I think it does come back to taking a pause and figuring out who you are on the personal branding side of things. It's figuring out who you are because it's too hard to keep up a facade, and it'll all
Yeah.
crumble, and then it'll come back and it'll bite you because everyone will be like, "Wait, I thought you were like this." So actually spending the time, and I like to. It's a silly analogy, but I think of when I work with my clients of like I'm braiding. So everybody thinks that there's nothing unique and special about them. They're not a special snowflake. Everyone thinks that their life is just boring because we're living our life day in, day out. But when I work with my clients, there's little elements that I see, and I can pull that thread. And okay, maybe on its own, it's not all that unique. And then there's another thread, and I pull on that, and then I pull on another one, and we slowly weave it like in together. And before you know it, you have this really beautiful braid, which is in this analogy, their personal brand.
Mm,
But it's taking those little elements and putting them together in your own unique way. That's what gets you to stand out on the personal branding side of things.
mm,
Just because I have the corporate branding experience, and I know a lot of your listeners have the brick and mortar store, in terms of standing out for the actual storefronts and your online presence there, it is market research, figuring out I'll give you the fastest, biggest hack you can do. If you can distill your brand and business into 3 words, ideally adjectives. I mean, two to 3 words, no more, and stay away from generic words like honest and integrity. Like you're supposed to be honest and with
yeah.
integrity when you do a business because
Yeah.
you won't get very far. Real descriptive words and you can make up the words as well. And then they are your rule book for everything you do. So when you go to pick the colors for your business, you need to make sure that those colors symbolize these 3. If
Mhm.
at the very least 2 out of the 3. Same when you do your fonts, when you do your logo, when you're creating your menu. Sorry, I keep going back. I haven't had breakfast yet, so I keep going back to the food examples. The
I love it.
menus or your news ads, your templates that you use on social media, whatever physical collateral you need, your signage, everything, the color that you paint the front, everything that you do needs to fall under these adjectives, at least 2 out of the 3. If it's not, then it's not congruent and you're giving mixed messages. Because what ends up happening is you see something, particularly when you're doing something online and you're using like templates or like a website, and you're like, oh, that looks cool, so we'll go do that.
Yeah.
But just because it's cool and you like it personally does not mean that it works for your business. So having
Right.
those 3 words, write them on Post-its, glue them to your forehead, whatever you have to do. And those are the filter that you run everything through.
I
And then
love
just
that.
be consistent and then rinse and repeat. And then the other thing that I would advise people of doing, because I see this, I just with so many years experience working with physical stores and corporate branding, I can see this happening all the time. The owner of the store or the owner of the staff, you will get sick of your branding way faster than anyone else because you see it every day. I
Yeah.
promise you, most people aren't seeing it as much.
Yeah.
So hold off making changes just
Mm.
because you're sick of it. That's an emotional response. because you need that consistency. And even when you think you're annoying and you're pushing out too much content and you're too repetitive, just keep going. I promise
So
you it'll
true.
balance itself out.
Yes. Yeah. I get that a lot from owners who are like, oh, I feel like I'm constantly bugging people. I'm like, I promise you, out of those 4 emails, people have probably seen one. So,
Oh my God, I have people
uh,
emailing me 4 times a day.
yeah.
Don't worry about it. Keep going. Double down. That's what,
Yes. Oh, Michelle, this has been phenomenal. I love all of the insight that you've provided. I think it really gives a new perspective for people to think about as they're opening and growing their business, to think about that personal brand and how they're showing up in their
Mhm.
local communities. So thank
Yes.
you very much. Michelle, how can people learn more about you, work with you, share a little bit about that?
Yes, so I'm on all the social media under the handle I'm Michelle McCarthy, and I offer free brand strategy calls. So in any one of the links in my bio, you can book in one of those. If you would like to work together, we can see if we're a fit and how that would look. And or just follow me on any and all socials and just slide into my DMs and keep the chat going.
Ooh, I love that. A free brand strategy session. I think that is definitely worth taking advantage of. I will link to all of these in the show notes. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the Receipt Paper Podcast, your go-to source of information for starting and growing a successful brick-and-mortar business. Subscribe to hear future episodes and share this content so that more people can access these valuable insights. If you're looking for more resources to help you with your brick-and-mortar business, visit masterbrickandmortar.com or follow us on Instagram at masterbrickandmortar. Thanks again for listening to the Receipt Paper Podcast. We'll see you in the next episode.